and welcome back to the Plant Powered podcast. Today I've got my first interview back in a while, which is Steph Veltman, and I found her TikTok account and I was like, oh my God, she'll just be perfect, because I felt like we resonated with a lot of the same stuff, and she kind of was doing TikToks on the same kind of thoughts that I have about like the world and escaping the rat race and what our life as a human should actually be like. So welcome to the podcast. And did you want to just introduce yourself as well?
Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Steph, or if you've come from TikTok, I go by High Vibe Honey. And yeah, so I'm a qualified holistic social worker, and I don't do that full time at the moment. Got a few things going on. So a little bit of coaching, a little bit of manifestation, work with people. I do some content creation, especially through TikTok. A little side bit, like I just do so many random things, a little side business, doing like a little catering business, and also doing some trading on the foreign exchange market. So I'm a mixed bag.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's always good to have heaps of variety. Well, I find like I have heaps of interest too, and I want to pursue everything, but it means that your weeks, like even your days, even look different day to day. So it just makes life so much more interesting, and you never really get sick of anything. So
yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah. And that's what I always found. Like I'd sort of boxed myself into the one job, and I was always getting very frustrated. I was like, I've got all these interests and passions, but I'm only able to do the one thing, working the 9-to-5 job. So since I stepped away from that and have had the opportunity and the time to pursue all these other things, it's just like every door that I've ever wanted to open is opening.
Yeah. So did you work as a holistic social worker? Was that your job, or is that like what you do as your business now?
Yeah, so that's what I do now. So I graduated in 2015 with a Bachelor of Social Work, and that was just, there was nothing else with that, just a straight Bachelor of Social Work. And then I worked somewhere for 6 years. The position I was in was more focused on crisis work and working with like quite high levels of trauma. So it was a lot of like go every day, trying to basically put out little fires with the clients that I was working with. When I stepped away from that last year in November, that's sort of really when I was able to dive into the more holistic side, to sort of slow things down a little bit, and really, and really work, I guess, the way that I wanted to always work, but hadn't had the opportunity to because of like the trauma field that I was in, because clients was just constantly either in like fight or flight mode. You couldn't do, I guess the deeper sort of work with them. Like I said, it was sort of more just like putting out little fires and, trying to find someone a place for the night, or, working with domestic violence clients, that kind of stuff. So it was always, putting out little fires, whereas now I'm able to sort of go into deeper stuff with people, the more emotional, spiritual, inner child, shadow work kind of stuff. So that's where the holistic side comes from. So it's not just focused on, mental health or environmental, it's all aspects of a person's life. So a very holistic model of working with people.
Okay, cool. And did you want to tell them what you just made for your ebook as well?
Yeah, so I'm bringing out an ebook today, actually. So by the time this podcast goes live, it'll be on my profile. So it's about manifestation and the law of attraction, which is something that I've just been absolutely fascinated by forever. I guess I was very lucky because I was brought up, my parents are both a very spiritual people, into spirituality, law of attraction. The way that I grew up, I didn't appreciate it at the time, because I just wanted to be like every other normal kid. When I'd go to school and people would say, oh, what'd you get up onto the weekend? We went to watch the footy, or we had a family barbecue. My response was, oh, my parents used Ouija boards with their friends and tried to call upon the dead. So I had had a very unusual upbringing, and that sort of led me to like hide that part of myself, because I'd get a lot of judgment for it, and that girl's weird, like she believes in ghosts and all this strange stuff that we don't understand. So I hid that part of myself for a long time, and it's only really been in the last few years that I've been rediscovering that part of myself, which is what led to the creation of the ebooks. It's something that I've always believed in, always known about, and have wanted to really put that out to the world. Like I'm sort of in a space where like I'm ready to show that side of myself again.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
The first question I was going to ask was what you thought your 30s would look like versus what it's actually like in relation to creating your own timeline and destiny. That was based on videos.
Yes, and that's a big thing that I always talk about on my TikTok, because I think it's really interesting when you have this perception of what you think your life's going to be like, particularly at the age of 30. So I'm 31 now, and I feel like when you are thinking about when you're 30 years old, you're going to have all your shit sorted. Basically, you're going to have the house, you're going to have the partner, you're going to be married and have new car, maybe looking at buying your second house. Like there's just all this expectation, and I guess pressure that you put on yourself and that society puts on you as well, to have your shit sorted out. And we don't. Like the older I get, the more I realize that no one actually knows what they're doing. We're all just fumbling along, trying to get through and trying to to make things work. So I guess for me, I always thought like I said, I'd have the house and the partner, and I do have a lot of those things, but I'm not as content with them as I thought I would be. Like they don't make me whole. I'm not like, yep, I'm done, I've done this and this, like a tick the box, now I'm happy and now I can just relax. I feel like this age, and I guess developmentally, they say that we don't actually, our brain doesn't finish developing until we're in our 30s. So you spend all of your 20s sort of running amok and exploring and trying to figure things out, and then you hit 30 and you're like, oh, okay, what's going on now? Like you sort of have a bigger picture of life, I think. So for me, it's really been about exploring that and actually figuring out who I am and who I want to be. It's a big theme of my content, is that you always have the capacity and the opportunities to, if you're not happy with who you are within yourself, to change that at any time. You aren't, it's not about finding yourself and discovering who you are. It's about creating who you want to be. If you have this picture in your head of this is the person that I want to be, you are fully capable of achieving that.
Yeah, I totally believe that as well. But I feel like I'm crushing myself with the pressure of like the age expectations. But I think I put the pressure on myself because when I was like young, I was like, by 25, I want such and such. And then, probably having kids at 28 or 30, but I want a house and like a really successful business where I can have like complete freedom and no stress about any bills or anything. And I'm 25 now and I'm like, I've done heaps of stuff, but I feel so stressed. I'm like, oh my God, 1.5 years till I'm 27. And it's like, then I think I need to have the house by then. So how am I going to save for the whole house deposit? And I'm like, I went through this thing a while ago where this girl, she said to me, I said this in my last video as well. She was like, if you've been working since you were 16, then why aren't you where you want to be yet? And it was like, I was quite offended. Because if I'm already stressing about it, I don't need other people telling me you're not doing good enough. But I said to her, I think because I haven't done one thing for long enough, because I started 4 businesses by age 24, and I've had like a food truck, I've done a social media business, I've done the nutrition stuff, I've done plant-based meal prep and food delivery, I've worked in health stores, degree in hotel management, now I'm working at a gym. Like I've done so many things, and even within my own business, I've like done ebooks, online programs, I'm doing a recipe club. So it's like, I just like to try everything. Well, I feel like you need to do one thing for at least a couple of years to get really good at it and really define and perfect that product kind of thing. But I'm like, oh my God, I'm so behind. But really, if I look at it, I've done heaps, and it's just about exploring different things you like or exploring different things that work, kind of thing. And most people don't even explore. So I need to think of how far I've come, but I always feel like stressed out about my age. And I think also because I've got like a younger sister, she's 5 years younger, and she works full time. She would have like way more money because she's been working full time, and I've been trying to work on a business. So I'm like, oh my God, she's so successful and she's going to get married and have kids, and I'm just the older sister who's like going out to festivals.
Yeah. I totally get that.
Yeah, who like goes out to gigs and like, I don't know. So I think there's a lot of pressure, but it's not so much society. Like I think a lot of us probably do put it on ourselves, kind of thing. But for me, it's the expectation I put on myself from like when I was a teenager of how I thought the timeline would go. But I think now like happiness is just doing what you want in life. And I think just discovering your passion, because most people don't even explore what they're even good at, kind of thing, because they think you just get a job and then get a house and that's it. So you think like making it work for you, but living a life that's exciting. I think like Monday's my favorite day, or work from home day, doing my business stuff is like my favorite thing I can do. So like a life that you look forward to, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many people, we get caught in our comfort zone. You know, we get our job and we get our house and we think, okay, like I'm really comfortable, this is safe, like I know what to expect every day. Whereas I think the people that are, you know, they want to explore their passions and they want to try new things and they've got, I guess, more of that entrepreneurial mindset, it is a lot more challenging because you constantly have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I always think, you know, yes, it'd be so easy for me to just walk back into a 9-to-5 job and, you know, I get my paycheck every week, I know what's happening, you know, I know what my days look like. But then I think I don't want to do that for the next 50 years of my life. Like I can't do that. So I'm going to need to get uncomfortable and I guess do things that aren't the norm. And it's scary. Like it's really scary, I guess, or, you know, going off that cliff by yourself, basically. I'm lucky I've got a really supportive partner that's got the same sort of mindset. But, you know, if you're doing that, yeah, on your own, you're the only one that's backing you, kind of thing. And you've got to have such belief and faith in yourself that, okay, I'm going to put in the work. Yes, I'm doing what is, you know, not, I guess, considered like normal, but I've got faith in myself that I can make it work. And those are the sorts of people that will make it work and will, you know, escape the matrix, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. The next question I'll just say it now because we're already talking about it, but it was society's expectations of working a 9-to-5 and escaping the rat race. But I was going to say, like, sometimes, like, especially when you build a business, sometimes you'll have heaps of money coming at once and heaps of clients, and everything's great. And then you'll have nothing for months. So it's like very unpredictable. And it's kind of hard, like with my mum, she always supports me in my dreams and stuff. But because your family only care about your well-being, and if I'm in another country and can barely afford anything because I'm trying to make this work, like I've been told so many times by so many people, like, why don't you just get a job, kind of thing. And then I just think, like, I've always done casual work on the side. Like I worked at the health store, which is still my passion, and I look forward to it every day, but I still had time to do my actual passions as well. But then heaps of people say that, like, oh, you just need to get a job, because they don't see like your higher vision or anything, or they just think it's like kind of weird what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, especially family, they worry for you. They worry that you're not going to make it and you're going to be on the street, and, you know, how will you look after yourself if you don't have a stable income? And, you know, that's a genuine concern for a lot of people. And I guess my approach personally has been to like diversify my income and have multiple streams of income. That's why I'm doing so many different things, because you can't, and this is, I think, what the pandemic, you know, taught us, is that you can't rely on one income anymore. You know, as much as it sucks in a way, because it means you've got to work harder and, you know, explore more things, it's not safe, I guess, to just rely on the one income, because you never know when you're going to lose that job. So you need other things going on. Yeah,
that's so funny. I saw some stuff online saying like they think starting a business is risky, but having a job is also risky. Something can happen at any time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I think diversifying is the key.
Yeah. And I think online as well, particularly, you know, at this point in history, online is just the way to go, you know, especially with this whole like metaverse thing that's coming out, like just it's just going to be more and more online. So I think if you can get into that space, yeah, that's a pretty secure way, at least for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it is as well. The next one I was going to ask about is signs of healing, because in your video you talked about like responding, overreacting, enjoying being alone, being okay if people don't understand you, and different things like that.
Yeah, that's a big thing that I try and explore with people is that, I think when we talk about, healing and working through our trauma, they think in a way that, okay, they're just going to do a bit of work and then wake up one day and the trauma is going to be gone. It's not going to be of a concern to them anymore. But we have to actively work on it. And, the trauma or the experience, that's always going to be there. But yeah, it's the way that you're responding instead of reacting to it. It's being willing to, look at those parts of yourself that maybe you've hidden, or you have some shame around, that kind of thing. A lot of the work that I do is like the inner child work and like sort of gentle reparenting of the self, and also shadow work, which is looking at those really icky, dark sort of parts that you're trying to suppress, but that in order to grow and move past, you actually need to look at them and work through them.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
The next thing was, I think one of your videos was on like spiritual awakenings and leveling up. And I think it was like how to know if you're going through a spiritual awakening kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is where I go on a tangent. So I basically, like I said, I grew up with very spiritual parents. So I've always sort of known, I guess, about manifestation, law of attraction, angel numbers, like tarot cards, all that sort of stuff. That was my childhood. But it wasn't really until 2020 that I, when the pandemic was happening, and there just felt like this massive energetic shift in the world. And I sort of had these moments where I'd started going down rabbit holes, like conspiracy theories, that sort of thing. And a lot of them, they just sound absolutely whacked. But it sort of just got me thinking. And some of them I was like, oh, okay, actually, I'm quite intrigued by that, rabbit hole. Let's go down that a little bit further. Anyway, the more and more that I started going down these rabbit holes and looking into these conspiracies, I started, I guess, just thinking about the way that I was interacting in the world and what, was there a bigger purpose for me? Because I'd always sort of felt a little bit lost, for quite some time. So I started sort of doing some self-development work and getting more into meditations and tarot cards and all that sort of thing for myself. And it's just like, like my mind just suddenly like opened, like massively just opened. And all of a sudden I just was like, yep, this is 100% what I need to do. So from that point, as I started the meditations and the journaling and the affirmations and all that kind of stuff that I love, that's, I guess, when like my spiritual awakening really happened. Like I sort of really, it's a funny thing to try and explain to people. But the way it started was by seeing what you call synchronicities. So seeing, like repeating numbers over and over, or you might hear, a song on the radio that relates to something that you were just thinking about, or, you sort of get this feeling that a friend is going to message you and then they do, or they call you or whatever. So just these little signs that just started making me feel a little bit more connected to what was around me. Yeah. So then I started doing chakra meditations. I don't know if you have ever tried a chakra meditation before.
I'm still new to meditation. I did this thing. Oh, this thing's like all broken with the things falling out. But I went to like a yoni sculpting class.
Oh, that's awesome.
But all those things are falling off. I've got to glue them back on the side. But that was like the yoni that I made out of clay. And it was like a group of ladies who all did it together. And we all just talked about like men and pregnancy and babies. And it was just so cool. But that lady did like a womb meditation. So you like go into your womb, and then some of them had, like, one of the ladies had her uterus taken out for medical reasons. Another lady finally decided she was like ready to have a child, like just after the meditation and stuff. So I was like, oh my god. But I'm still new to all that because I find it hard to like sit down and just
yes Yeah, and that's the issue that I had. That's why I'd never really been able to get into it, because I started, and I think this is how a lot of people start with meditation, is, you know, downloading the Headspace app or the Calm app, which is sort of the two biggest meditation apps around. And that's they do something called mindfulness meditation, where basically, you know, you sit in a quiet place, you try and, you know, clear your mind of all thoughts. You know, if a thought comes in, you know, that's okay. You pop it on a little cloud, it floats away. I just could not get my mind to keep still. Like, that sort of meditation did not work for me. Then I sort of started exploring, okay, well, what other types of meditation are there? Because I want the benefits of meditation. I know that it's, you know, one of the best things you can really do for, you know, there's just so many multiple emotional, mental, physical benefits to meditating. And so then I came across chakra meditations, which is sort of the energy centers in the body. And I guess the belief is that when one of those centers is out of alignment, then you'll start seeing issues within your body, and that can manifest as, you know, like physical ailments or you know, mental health problems, that kind of thing. You know, it's a bit, some people think it's a little bit woo-woo, but like if you are into the spiritual side of things, and yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I started doing these chakra meditations and sort of working through the energy centers in my body and trying to figure out where I had blockages or where there was, you know, stagnant energy, that kind of thing. And they sort of go through, so you've got 7 chakras in your body. It starts from the root chakra at the base of your spine all the way up through your body to the crown chakra on the top of your head. When I got to, and there's also a third eye chakra. When I got to my third eye chakra, and the, you know, the meditation, the visualization sort of gets you to, yeah, you just sort of go along with the visualization that they're giving you. When I got to my third eye chakra, it's like I had this like searing hot pain in the middle of my forehead, and in my visualization, it was just like this burst of like this purple color, which is fascinating because each chakra is associated with a particular color, and the third eye is like a deep indigo sort of purple color. So from that point, when I'd sort of like opened up my third eye, yeah, the spiritual hole was opened basically. And I've been going down that ever since, just like doing more and more manifesting work. Yeah.
Oh, the girl I live with said, like, because I broke my toe 2 days ago, she came in and said that she was reading this book that shows like if you have physical issues with your body, like what it relates to in your life. And she said that feet means to slow down. And I was like, this is my first week of being busy with my new job, and like
Yeah.
slow down, like I barely gotten started yet. So it was kind of funny, but I definitely believe in that stuff because I do nutrition consults, and I've got a bioenergetic scanner because I'm terrified of needles and blood tests. So I get them for myself every year because I eat plant-based as well. But when I did it with this lady, because she was based in Sunny Coast, so we'd do it through a video call, and I'd do the scan, and she's like, so I know that you've just gone through a breakup, blah, blah, blah. And she knew everything about me, even though we'd never talked before, just from like my organ health and the nutrients in my body.
That's so fascinating.
Like, if it's your liver, this is related to such and such, but even your thyroid, like I don't have thyroid problems, but it said if I don't deal with it now, it'll manifest in the future. But your thyroid and the flow in your throat is related to how you stand up for yourself and stuff. So me and I like didn't do it. So I was like, oh God, it's so crazy how everything's connected. So I believe that for sure.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting you say that, because I also for like years and years, I'd always, whenever I was getting sick, the first thing would be my throat, and I'd always have a swollen throat. I constantly got tonsillitis, you know, my lymph nodes were always massive. And yeah, like you were saying, it's related to something emotional that you're not dealing with, and that's a lot of what the chakra meditations also help with, is dealing with the energetic blocks in particular areas of the body. So the throat is a really powerful one. Yeah, it's about not speaking your truth, not expressing yourself, not telling, you know, not enforcing boundaries with people, that kind of thing. And so when we're not doing that and not speaking our truth, you know, basically the energy gets stuck in our throat and can manifest, as thyroid issues or throat issues or, you know, whatever. Really fascinating to go down that path.
Yeah. The next question was what to do if you feel triggered.
Yeah, so this is a big one, and I guess it depends what what the trigger is for you. There's so many like tools and techniques and that kind of thing that you can use, but the biggest one that I always come back to with clients that I work with, because when you're in the moment and you're feeling triggered, you don't want to go and do a meditation. You don't want to write out your thoughts and feelings, not in that moment. So the biggest thing that I always say is to focus on the breath, because the breath will regulate your whole nervous system. Because what we're doing normally when we're triggered, we've activated that parasympathetic nervous system. We're in the fight or flight mode. And often we're breathing from our chest, not from our belly. So when we start breathing from our belly, it actually tells our body that, okay, we're actually in a calm state. We're in the rest and digest, state. We're safe. That trigger, yep, it's triggered us. It's caused an emotional reaction, but we don't need to respond in the way that we used to respond. So if you can just remember to, focus on the breath, breathe through the belly up into the chest, and sort of like a bit of a loop. So just keep going around and around. You'll find that that's probably the best in the moment, the best way to sort of reduce the anxiety and those feelings that you're feeling. Once you've done that, then you can start working on, doing a bit of, journaling around, around the trigger. Maybe it depends what works for a person. Like some people really like self-soothing type activities. So, maybe getting a bit of hand moisturizer and giving yourself a bit of a hand massage, because just that physical touch produces the oxytocin in the brain that also tells us that we're safe and, we're loved and it's okay. So that, there's so many different techniques, but it's always breath work is the biggest one for me. And not maybe something like there's something called square breathing, which can be really useful. So it's when you sort of are focusing on breathing in for 4 seconds, holding your breath for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, holding your breath for 4 seconds. And you just sort of visualize a square and you go around and around and around until your body regulates and you feel in control again.
Yeah, I was just going to share one of the ones my coach taught me. I had a big 5-hour breakthrough session last year with this coach that I got, but she said I was so triggered by things because I'll see something and that was related to my last relationship and my mind would go wild. And then she just taught me separate the facts from the story that you're telling yourself. So if I saw something happen, I'll be like, oh my God, and now all this stuff is going on and they hate me and I'm not good enough and they're doing this together, blah, blah. But the reality is actually just the simple thing that you saw, but none of that stuff is necessarily true or anything. It's just you're telling yourself. So I think that's a good coping mechanism as well. And then I always just find nature helps. When I take my dog out for a walk in the forest, I just feel better straight away. And even if I don't do it for me, I just do it for her, but I always feel better afterwards as well. So it always just surrounding yourself in nature helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, if you can sort of get outside and get away from that environment, if you're stuck in an office or, even in your own house, if you can just get outside, your perspective does definitely shift. And there's a lot of also sciencey info out there on the negative ions that are in the earth that is able to sort of ground us, particularly if you can be barefoot outside, on the grass in nature. That actually has a huge soothing effect and regulatory effect on our body. But yeah, so getting outside in nature and trying to make that a regular part of your day. Yeah, focusing on breath work when you're, not feeling immediately triggered, working around why that happened. So doing some journaling, perhaps doing some affirmations, that you'll be able to use when you are in that situation again, coming up with, 4 or 5 statements, I am safe, I am in control, what happened to me happened, but it's not happening anymore, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. The next one was, can you talk a little bit about what self-sabotage looks like?
Yes. So I feel like I'm an expert on self-sabotage. Yes. So I think it's that notion that, it's that little voice in your head that tells you that you're not good enough, that, even if you have all the evidence to prove that you are good enough and that you have, achieved whatever in your life, it's still that little voice in your head that says, you're not good enough, you can't do this, just give it up. You know, there's people that are so much better at you than this. And it's really hard not to believe that little voice. And at the end of the day, that's our ego talking. And, you know, I think there's this, well, people think, you know, oh, ego, that's bad. You know, we shouldn't have an ego. Well, we actually need an ego, because our ego, all it's trying to do is keep us safe. It wants us just to do what we know, because what we know is safe. So it wants to keep us in our comfort zone. So I think if you can switch it around, and sometimes I like to like visualize them as, you know, like not the angel and devil on your shoulder, but like that, just to give it a description, give it a face, give it a name even. This little person that, you know, lives in your mind, yes, they're telling you that you're not good enough or that you can't do this, but they're actually just trying to keep you safe. So if you can sort of personify this little voice, it makes it a lot easier to shut it down. So mine's called Susan, and she's a freaking mole. And when she gets going, and when she starts telling me that I can't do, you know, this, that, and the other, I say, all right, shut up, Susan. Like, I can actually do this, and I've done this before. This is what I've achieved. So I give her evidence to say, actually, no, this is what I've done. I've bought a house, I've bought out an ebook, you know, whatever it is. And you sort of like notice it goes quieter. So it's not that loud, you know, voice screaming in your head. But yeah, that's where our limiting beliefs come from. And in order to grow and move past them, we do have to, you know, find tools and techniques to quiet that voice down.
Do you think there's like certain activities we do or something that hinders our progress, or like hinders us achieving something before we even barely get started, kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think even, you know, if you take like health and exercise and that kind of thing, you know, it's all about habits as well. So if we've already got bad habits, that can also be a form of self-sabotage, you know, that and especially if we're not willing to work through those habits. So if your habit is, you know, every few days, whenever you don't, you know, you get home from work and you don't feel like cooking dinner, and you order Uber Eats, even though, you know, you told yourself that, okay, no, I was going to get back on track this week. You know, if you, I guess, put in some time on the weekend and you know, meal prepped and got everything organized for yourself, maybe you wouldn't have sort of self-sabotaged and you know, gone and got the takeaway and then regretted it and then felt bad about yourself and then had that little voice in your head going, see, I told you, you can't stick to a diet, you know, you're no good, you will never be able to do this. So yeah, I think self-sabotage and to overcome some of those things, yeah, creating healthy habits is really powerful.
Yeah, I think self-talk comes into it a lot as well, because someone shared something on their story yesterday, and it was right when I was having like a mental breakdown. So I was like, oh my God, I needed that right now. But it was about like being the victim. And when all the stuff's been happening over the last few weeks, like the car blew up, and then it still took me like 5 weeks to get a job. So I was like trying to make it work here without like losing the house or whatever. And then all these issues with the dog, and then my foot broke. And then most of the time I was trying to be positive, like, oh, at least I didn't get stranded anywhere, or at least I've got time to focus on this now, or at least I'll appreciate just being able to drive to the gym. So it's like a privilege to go instead of something you've got to tick off the list kind of thing. But then it still all did pile up, and I was like, why does this always happen to me? And then you like bring more of it into your life because you're expecting it, kind of thing. So you're like aiming for something, but even like the subconscious mind would be like, oh, you never do such and such, or never get such and such, and then it like makes it happen. So it's like, for me, I'm trying to really work on the subconscious thoughts, because I think the conscious thoughts are pretty good, like, oh yeah, I'll think of it like this and think it's helping me in another direction, or at least it's not, it could be worse or something. But then my subconscious mind still makes stuff happen, if that makes sense, but I'm still not aware of it. Or like, then I just wonder, I'm like, why me? I'm sick of this, blah, blah, and then go into like a downward spiral. So trying to be more aware is like something I'm trying to do at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really hard because we don't often like know when it's our subconscious mind that's talking to us, you know. And I think that's why affirmations particularly are really powerful. You know, people think that affirmations, oh yeah, it's just, you know, just about speaking positive words to yourself. Or yeah, it is, but it's also about rewiring your subconscious mind through repetition. So if you're, you know, repeating these affirmations daily, you're actually essentially like brainwashing yourself is what you're trying to do. And to start with, people don't often believe the affirmations that they're speaking to themselves. So if you're, saying trying to work on your confidence, and your affirmation is, I'm a confident person, I have no fear when speaking, in public, that kind of thing. You're not going to believe that to start with, but the more that you do it, the more that you're actually rewiring the neural pathways in your brain. And then when you're doing that, your brain is actually searching for evidence to prove to yourself that this is actually who I am. I am a confident person. So it's just about repetition with using affirmations and trying to work through the subconscious mind, like trying to get through to the subconscious mind.
Yeah, I definitely had that thing when I was trying to do affirmations once, and I just honestly didn't believe it, because I was telling myself, I'm like, I am abundant, I am a rich woman, but I was like struggling to buy groceries, and stuff, and it was actually really hard time. So I was like, how the hell do you like try to believe it when it's like actually not true? So then the girl I went to for coaching, she said, like, reword it so it's like, there's an abundance of clients waiting to be in my email inbox or something, which is totally a possibility. Or like, there's an abundance of clients that I can reach in the world who need my services, which is true. So it's about, instead of like labeling yourself as something you're not, it's about like, I don't know, just wording it in a different way that's actually believable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or one of my go-to things is I'm on my way to becoming abundant, or I'm on my way to creating the life of my dreams. So I'm not there yet, and I'm not trying to convince myself of something that is not realistic for me at the moment, but I am on my way. Every day I'm getting closer and closer to that version of myself that I can see, and one day will become.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The next question was, or just having a chat about escaping the matrix and natural living.
Yes. So escaping the matrix, that's funny, and it ties into the whole, not wanting to do the 9 to 5 thing anymore. I think for me personally, like a lot of people love working their 9 to 5. They love the stability, they love the security. Like I said, they love knowing, what's coming up next for them. But I just couldn't see myself doing that for the next 50 years to then be given, being able to retire at age 70 probably by that point, and then only having like 10 years to actually enjoy doing what I want to do. So I guess I've always been a little bit different in my thinking around that sort of thing. But I just wanted to, when I was working my job, my full-time social work job, like I got to the point where I just did not want that lifestyle anymore. Like I wanted freedom, and I wanted flexibility, and I wanted to be able to wake up whenever I wanted, and I wanted to be able to take time off and go on holidays without having to fill in 50 annual leave applications for it to be rejected, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not easy. When we talk about escaping the matrix, I guess it's basically trying to leave regular society in a way, so doing something that's against the norm. And really the only way to, I think, achieve that is through creating wealth and financial freedom, and being like not having to rely on the system. So not having to to be able to buy a bit of land and a couple of cows and grow your own vegetables and just be more self-sufficient, because we have become so dependent on the system. And when you're that dependent on something, you don't have control anymore, and that was my biggest fear, is that not being in control of my own life. That terrifies me, that they could just come and say, oh, well, if you're perhaps on Centrelink benefits or something like that, so, well, you haven't met these requirements, then that we're cutting your payoff. It's just so easy for them to control our life, and I wanted to be more in control of my life. And to do that, I realized that I need to basically live my life outside of the system and society. And I hope that I get to the point where I am able to buy a bit of land and build my own house, and focus on solar panels and aquaponics and all that sort of stuff that makes you more self-sustainable. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think I became more aware of that during COVID, because it was only recently, I think it was only end of last year, I experienced the first supermarket shortage. And it just made me realize, I was like, we literally just walk in the store and buy our food, and that's our only source of food for like most of us. So the house I moved into now, we're starting a garden and stuff. So I actually have no idea how to grow food, but I did weeding there once, and that was like the second time in my life. I was like, yeah, I really want to help out with the veggies and stuff. And I feel a lot more secure here. If there's another shortage, like we're going to be fine. Then the only thing I thought of was like, I want to learn how to like grow soybeans or something. I don't know if like it even grows here, but so I can make tofu and soy milk and stuff. Because if there's a food shortage, if I don't eat meat, then I won't have like protein. Like there's eggs from our chicken. Like you can't just eat veggies. So it's just about like making sure you've got like a wide variety of stuff still. But I think that's a good start. But then I started the new job like just this week, and then already like I have no time to go outside and create that kind of thing or learn something. So it's like, especially families when the parents are both working full time, they're dropping the kids off at school, everyone's so busy, they're just trying to get dinner on the table. Like you don't really have time to even step away to put the effort into a garden or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And that, I think that's it is a really tricky thing, because you do need a lot of money to be able to do that. But I think it's also about finding balance, having that, idea that, okay, I'm going to work towards being a little bit more self-sufficient while also still having to live within, in regular society. But I guess my whole thing with, like escaping the matrix or the rat race is just that I don't want to, I just don't want to wake up at 5 a.m., go to work, come home, cook dinner, go to bed, be too exhausted to do anything else. Like that's not an idea. Like that's not living to me. Like I said, some people are okay with that because they like the routine and the structure. But for other people, that's not a life. That's not freedom. That's just getting up and ticking boxes and then being, exhausted at the end of the day and not being able to work on your own goals and dreams. So I think if you can, if you're in that position and you want to sort of step away from that a little bit, like my advice would be to, if you can, like, and obviously this isn't going to be possible for everyone, but if you can, cut your hours back at work, have a little bit more me time so you can actually work on other projects and, perhaps start a side hustle or an online business of some sort. I know it's not that easy. It sounds, all well and good, but it's a lot of work. But if you can, have 1 or 2 days where you're able to just work on something that is going to generate more income, it gives you more options, I guess, in life.
Yeah, there was a couple more points I was going to touch on with that. With your video about that, it was so funny because everyone started hating in the comments and saying like, well, if people didn't go to work, you wouldn't have table and you wouldn't have clothes to wear and stuff. But I agree about the same thing. Like my business isn't enough to live off full time, but I've always had a job which like just covers the basics. So I worked at a health store and I could promote my business there. I could do consults. I learned all about all these natural food products and all these different brands, and chatted to the naturopath while I was there. And it's like I'm constantly learning in the industry I care about. But that job basically just covered rent. So I still had the rest of the week to walk the dog, go to the gym, work on my business, do YouTube videos, anything I wanted to do. And that was probably not enough hours there. It was only 10 to 15 hours a week, but I was also like in a small town, so it wasn't expensive rent like the city. So the job I got now is 20 to 30 hours a week. So it's like a bit more, like I'll be a bit busier because expenses are more here, but it's still not like full time. So at least I can still fit in the things that are important to me and like still make it work with all my different interests kind of thing. So if you do want to explore those options, you don't have to just be like jobless trying to make your job work, make your business work or side hustle work or whatever you want to do, but you can just like find more balance in what you're doing and maybe work just part-time or just work 4 days a week or something, so you get like a whole day extra a week to make your dreams a reality.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's funny that because I was getting a lot of like I guess hate comments on that video about, escaping the matrix and, do we really want to live this life for the next, 40, 50, 60 years? While there was a lot of comments that were like, yes, like I don't want this lifestyle, like, I'm working on breaking out of it, that kind of thing. A lot of people were like, well, how do you expect to make money? How am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to feed my kids? And obviously I'm not saying you don't work, like that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying find something that actually lights you up, that you don't hate going to every day, because that's when life becomes like, what, meaningless. If you're just going to a job that you're not enjoying and you're so exhausted by the end of the day, you need to move on. You need to find something that's actually going to light you up and make you feel motivated to keep going. But it was funny, yeah, when I sort of responded to a few of those comments from people, I think all it was they weren't happy with their own situation, and they were seeing other people that were doing what they want to do. Like, they didn't want to live in that, have that lifestyle either, but they didn't know, well, what else can I do?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And then just touching on the natural living side, I've learned heaps since being at that health store, which was awesome. But even just like swapping out, like, I'm not completely chemical free or anything, but swapping out just some of your beauty products and stuff, like deodorants or your moisturizers and stuff. Like, I still use normal shampoo and conditioner, but I think if you just swap out some things, and even like my laundry powder, so no, like when I'm laying in my bed, I'm not laying in toxins from traditional laundry detergent and stuff. Even on your clothes, you're like, oh, at least in your head it feels a little bit better that you're reducing your chemical load. And even with your cleaning products and stuff, like, I've been sent like all natural ones, and even the ones I've got, it like comes in an aluminium spray bottle, so it doesn't even produce plastic, which is really cool. So I think it's really cool to explore all those kind of things, just so you feel better within yourself, and it also helps with your hormone balancing and stuff, so your body's not as stressed trying to detox all these things all the time.
Yeah, and that's it. And like in modern society, it's impossible, like literally impossible, to get away from chemicals and plastics. Like, they're in absolutely everything. But I think, yeah, if you can just do a little bit at least, yeah, it is reducing the toxic load on your body, reducing some of those, even stuff like perfume. Like, I used to love perfume. I would spray it all over my whole body, and then when I realized that it's actually just literally a bottle of hundreds and hundreds of toxic chemicals that disrupt our hormones and endocrine disruptors, all that sort of stuff, I just couldn't put that on my body knowing that. So if you just do a little bit of research into some of these things, yeah, you sort of do start stepping away and looking at alternatives. And there's lots of beautiful organic products and stuff out there, and a lot of them are very expensive, so it's not doable for everyone. But there's also, for cleaning products, you use vinegar and bicarb soda and lemon, and we don't need to be putting all these chemicals into our bodies, into our homes. It's too much. Like, that's why we have such high rates. Not only this, but it's a contributing factor to why we have such high rates of sickness and chronic illnesses and asthma and fertility issues and all this stuff, because there's just so many chemicals, and our body is amazing, but it's going to manifest as something at some point when we've got thousands and thousands of chemicals that we're putting into our body every day. And I think I read a statistic where, like, a woman's just morning skincare routine, just using, I guess, regular sort of supermarket type products, like, she's putting something like 200 chemicals onto her face by 9 a.m. It's insane when you think about it that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brought up this good point the other day too, because into that conspiracy stuff, he knew this stuff like years ago, and I always thought that he was a bit crazy. I was like, oh, what is that? And like, didn't believe anything he was saying. And then since COVID, like, all the stuff has come true, so I'm like, oh, he was just extra ahead of the game. But I remember a phone call we had a while ago, I think it was still when I lived in New Zealand or something, and he's like, all the food you buy from the supermarket is still not even healthy. And I actually got like kind of angry at him, because I bought veggies and I bought tofu and like canned beans and stuff. I was like, I still eat healthy. I was like, there's only so much I can do. And I didn't really understand what he meant, but he sent me money for a water filter for Christmas. So it's like the first time I've had one, and it's like the first time I've actually haven't minded the taste of water, because I always thought it was disgusting. So I've got that. And then I was talking about the fluoride, like how I went to the dentist and they're like, we live in a fluoride free world, but it's so important for you. And we're like trying to give me toothpaste with fluoride. And I don't know, like, it was just weird, like, because that's just what they learn at their universities or whatever. I was like, Dad, is that right? Or is that kind of weird? But then I said to him, I was thinking about, like, I even just buy like spinach from the supermarket, but it comes in a plastic bag. So all the stuff is like leaking from the bag into the spinach, even though it's like a health food. So I'm like, I'm only just clicking to all these things recently. But then Dad said about the fluoride in the water. I was like, yeah, I drink that stuff from from the filter now, which is really nice. But he said even if you're buying your veggies, what water are they using to grow the veggies? Even in the food? I'm like,
yeah.
oh, it makes you just really want to produce everything yourself.
I know. And because then you think, like, what are you washing the vegetables in? Normally tap water. What do you know, how do you boil them? You use tap water. So then that steam actually goes in. So it's, it's one of those really hard things. And I have struggled with that myself, trying to buy all organic. But, it's just impossible. And unless you have, $500+ a week to spend on your groceries, you just can't do it. So you you got to have that balance of, do what you can. Buy organic, buy local where you can, try and reduce some of the chemicals in, your cleaning products, especially because they're so chemically laden, and just do the best you can do.
Yeah, I think, you don't have to be perfect, because I don't buy organic because the price of that food is too much. But I think just swapping out some things, like using the filter water for just the water I drink, or just swapping out some of the things, then at least like you feel a bit better about things, but just like reducing it. And I think that principle applies to a lot of things, so you're not being like 100% perfect, because it's just too hard, I think.
It is, and you'll drive yourself absolutely bonkers, like I said, well then, even if you have a water filter and you're drinking tap water, then you've got to be mindful of, how you're washing your clothes, and how you're washing your hands, and getting a shower filter, because then our body absorbs that tap water. Like, it's just bloody impossible,
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to talk about was signs of mental exhaustion. So some of the points you had were like feeling irritated easily, you never feel like doing anything, constantly dreading the future, your thoughts are scattered, and difficulty processing emotions.
So mental exhaustion and burnout. And I think so many people experience this because we are just trying to take on so much all the time. Like, life is so demanding, and we're constantly trying to give 100% of ourselves, to others, if you've got a family or, whatever. But some of, I guess, the common signs and symptoms of, burnout, compassion fatigue, mental exhaustion, immune system is a big one, because stress can really impact our immune system. So if you're someone that's constantly, getting sick under the weather, catching colds, that kind of thing, even if your diet is, really good and you're getting all your vitamins and nutrients, stress has a huge impact on the body. So that can be, a telltale sign. Constant headaches, brain fog, fatigue, even if you're getting your 7-8 hours, plus of sleep. If you're, just mentally exhausted and burnt out, no matter, it doesn't matter how much sleep you're going to get, it's never going to feel like enough. Cravings, is a big one. Constantly being irritable, crabby, things, annoy you that wouldn't generally annoy you. You don't want to do anything that you used to like doing, things that used to bring you joy. You just like, no, can't be bothered doing that. Just don't have the brain capacity to even think about doing that anymore. So there's a lot of signs and symptoms of mental exhaustion and burnout, and it's really important to recognize and get on top of them when you do start to notice them, because otherwise it can really spiral quite quickly.
Do you know what kind of things cause mental exhaustion in the first place? Is it like doing the same thing for ages that's like not inspiring to you, or just like having too much on your plate kind of thing?
It could be so many things. A lot of it is when we're spreading ourselves too thin. We're trying to, keep our partner happy, keep our family happy, maintain our job, maintain our house. Particularly women, I feel like the mental load is a lot more. We're responsible for, organising gifts for people's birthdays, and, organising the catch-ups, and, doing all those little things around the house that, men sometimes, it doesn't even, it's not even on their radar. So just the constant bombardment of stuff that we have to do, your brain just gets to a point where it's like, oh my God, like, I don't know, like, what are we doing? Like, there's,
Do you know of like these things to cure mental exhaustion? Do you think like talking to someone about it, or taking like a weekend to yourself to just like stay in bed or something, just to like out.
Definitely all those things help, meditation and journaling and talking to people and, seeing, a professional if that's what you need to do. I think you have to be mindful, though, that it's not a Band-Aid fix. So they might, taking some, time out or having a bubble bath or whatever it is great in the moment and, will relax you. But, once it's Monday again, Monday comes around and you're back in your job and you're, got 50 million things on your mind, it's that you're still probably going to feel burnt out. So you really need to look at addressing the root cause of what's causing the burnout. If it's your job, like we were saying before, like maybe you need to reduce some hours or, look at changing jobs if that's an option for you. Yeah.
What do you think it means to heal your inner child?
Oh, good question. So it's about, inner child work is about gently reparenting ourselves and giving ourselves what we didn't get when we were little. So it's a pretty powerful thing to work through. And a lot of people, when they're doing the inner child work, it's quite an emotional thing because it's a lot of repressed emotion, repressed memories, things that they haven't really thought much about before but have just sort of happened to them. So when you're sort of doing inner child work, you're really sort of trying to go back and think about the things that happened to you when you were little that might have, upset you or hurt you or whatever the experience was, and work through that with, like, while visualizing that little person, like the little you, basically. So you sort of visualize little you and then you as you are now, nurturing that little person and then sort of giving them what they didn't get when they were little. So whether that's, giving them more physical affection, because perhaps that was something that you didn't get as a child. So, visualizing yourself giving little you a hug or, stroking their hair or whatever it is, or even just, words of encouragement saying, oh, you did a really good job on that, or, because maybe that's something that your parents, they might have still loved you, but maybe that's something that they never actually verbalized to you.
Yeah. I think I've been looking into a couple of things lately with my coach as well, because I think even sometimes people's coping mechanisms and stuff, it comes from their parents, but then you carry that into your own life and you just don't even realize, kind of thing. I know someone who had very bad anger issues, outbursts of anger, but their parents kind of did the same, but I don't think they put two and two together. And then my coping mechanism, I don't think I realized until 2 weeks ago, is when everything's too much or too stressful, I literally just close down. And then, not that I'm not trying to deal with the problem, but it's it's too much, and it's you just go into a little ball and I can't do it, kind of thing. But then I got told about a story of one of my parents who did that, with something that happened in their life too. So I was oh my God, I probably get that from my mum then. But you get certain traits, and it's not necessarily bad, but it's about becoming aware or just thinking, can you deal with things in a different way? Or I realized that I think all the pressure I was putting on myself to get all these things done was definitely to impress my family, because I'm oh my God, I want them to be proud of me, blah, blah, blah. But they probably are, but I'm freaking out about it because of I don't know, just stuff from when you were young that you don't even realize you carry into your adult life.
Absolutely, yeah. And a big part of, and this is probably the part that people always struggle with the most, but the big part of doing inner child work is actually forgiving parents, and some sort of trauma with their parents, and then they shouldn't have done what they did, and they get quite up in arms about it. But I always say it's not about forgiving them for what they did, because if they did something that hurt you, that's never okay. That was not okay. You were a child. It's about forgiving them because they didn't know how to respond any different at the time. They were likely doing, probably what they'd been taught as a child, from their parents. They were just, like you were saying, just repeating what they've learned. A lot of the time it's just sort of subconscious. We're not aware of how we're actually responding to things. So forgiving them for not knowing how to respond any differently. And when you can sort of work through that and work on, okay, accepting that, your parents are people that have their own stuff, they've got their own trauma, their own issues that they haven't worked with. And particularly I think for our age group, when we think about our parents, it wasn't a thing for them to, talk about their feelings or emotions or do inner child work. Like that did not happen. So they, if they had a hard upbringing, that's, some of them, will be able to reflect on that and make changes and do things differently. But a lot of the time they'll just be repeating those same patterns and cycles. And then that gets put onto us. But I think in, the generation that we're in, it's a lot more acceptable to be talking about this sort of stuff and be more open with, the things that might have happened to us. That there's so many people and professionals and, apps out there that can help.
I think we're like also in a generation where it's acceptable and like probably helpful for us to help our parents with stuff with your mental processes and different things like that, because back in the day that, as you said, it's like not a thing. It's only just like, well, maybe it's just my age, but it's just coming out in the last few years, so we can go back to our parents with stuff that we've learned and stuff that's helped us to help them in their lives. And I think I saw on your account as well, you said something like your parents are still individual people, who have got their own stuff. So just realizing like they're just like us, but a few years older, or like they could have, like, even my mom had me when she was 20. So at my age now, I would have a 5-year-old. And I'm like, oh my God. So just like kind of just thinking about that and just knowing that they're just trying to do their best kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they've just tried to do their best. And sometimes, I've sort of like with my own mum, I've sort of brought things up and she'll get quite defensive and say, oh no, I was a great parent though, like, I never hit you, I never smacked you. And I'm like, no, you didn't, like that was great, but there was things that I still, I guess, wanted from you that you weren't able to provide because of your own, emotional capacity. And she tended to withdraw as well a lot when she was, I guess, feeling heavy emotions, that kind of thing. So that's what I learned. So I didn't when I was feeling heavy emotions, I wouldn't go to her. She wouldn't, be the person that I'd just open up to. So I really had to learn for myself and on my own how to do that. But it can be hard bringing that sort of stuff up with parents who sort of refuse to see that or acknowledge that.
Yeah, I always believe in positive encouragement. So instead of, well, that's what I found in my last relationship. I didn't get that. Instead of being like, oh, why don't you try this? Or I really like it when you do this. It's more like you did all this stuff wrong. And then that's why I would shut down and like lose all my self-worth and stuff. So if you do that in any situation, just like telling the person the thing that you would like I really enjoy when you do this, or I really enjoy this side of you, blah, blah, blah. So it's like a positive thing that they don't have to feel guilty for.
Yeah. And if you sort of turn it around, like, this is how I feel, this is what I experience, rather than like attacking and being like, you did this to me and you made me feel that way. Yeah,
for sure. And the last thing to talk about was how to nurture and recreate yourself to live in alignment. Like, what's living in alignment to you?
Yeah, I guess we've already sort of touched a little bit on this, but it's, being honest with yourself in your life about what you're doing and what you want to do, and finding things that, finding what does bring you joy, every day. And it's taken me a long time to find that. I thought, going into social work particularly, it was going to be this super rewarding career. I'd be helping so many people, and it was like that for a little bit, but a lot of the time, it was taking on very heavy emotions from people and taking on a lot of their trauma and having to deal with that. And so it wasn't until I was able to leave that and sort of, like we've been talking about, pursue things that I was passionate about, that really set my soul on fire, I guess. And I was really like, yes, like, this is the thing that I want to be doing. Like, I still want to be helping people. That's why I chose social work, but it wasn't in the way that I was doing it when I was in my job. So I think, really being honest with yourself, if you're not happy and you feel like, oh, I've just got to get up again this morning and go to my shitty job, and, oh, it sucks and my life sucks. Like, you've got to change and be willing to take some risks, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. If you're not happy and you keep doing the exact same thing day in, day out, like, what do you expect is going to change? You're not suddenly going to turn into the person that is in your head that you want to be in, 5-10 years time if you don't take action, make a plan, set some goals, and actually start working on some of that stuff. So I guess for me, that is what living in alignment is. It's being true to myself, and just saying, okay, well, I've got this vision in my head of what I want my life to be like, who I want to be. How do I start embodying that and taking action? What are the steps that I actually need to take? And I've started taking some of those steps now, and it feels really good.
Yeah. For me, there's like a couple things, definitely with your career, literally just something that you look forward to, even if it is a job. Like I've definitely had jobs where I can't wait to start work, and I'm like excited to wake up on a work day because I'm like, I can't wait to go in and chat to my colleagues, and I love my manager, and I found it like really meaningful and stuff. But with my business, during the time I've been in Australia, it's been very hard at times. I had some very dark times when just nothing was going right for ages, and it was really, really pushing me. And I'll get like I've never had depression, but I got quite depressed and had to call the phone counselors and stuff. But the one thing that got me through was literally just my business, because I was like, if I can become more successful and then help more women, that's something deep and meaningful to me that keeps me going. So that's living in alignment. And also I always talk about eating in alignment with your values and stuff, like how you view your body versus how you feed it, kind of thing. Like if you think that you're a beautiful goddess kind of thing, are you eating to reflect that and like eating for nourishment and stuff, or eating because you hate it? And then I had like a different coaching call just before this podcast. And then I said to the guy who was helping me, I said, like, some of the days when I've been coming back so exhausted, and I'm experiencing that mental exhaustion thing at the moment, and it's like all a bit much. And it's not like I'm eating bad. I'm eating like more chocolate than usual, but I'll just have fast dinners. Like I put those vegan chicken fillets in the toaster because I couldn't be bothered getting a pan, and like ate it in bed. So it's not like unhealthy, because it's still like a source of protein, but it's not like a balanced meal with heaps of veggies and carbs and everything in it. So it's still like not bad, but that's not eating in alignment with my values, because I was too tired to do anything. So he was saying to me, you really need to, like, in these times, focus on that recipe club that you're doing, because that's inspiring me to cook food that other people will enjoy making, but also like putting good food in my own fridge and pantry, because that's what I'm passionate about and stuff. So even I wouldn't say I'm off the bandwagon, but I'm just finding like super quick fixes at the moment because I'm in a very busy period kind of thing. But just thinking about how you look after yourself, and how what you eat reflects in like how you view yourself, or how you would like to view yourself if you don't feel like you're there mentally yet as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's really important, what you said about, living in alignment with your values. I think it's really important to know, firstly, what your values are. And then if they're not, if you're not living through those and seeing those in your day-to-day life, that's not living in alignment with your true self. And I think it can be, there's activities and stuff that you can do. I always used to do an activity with clients where you have a whole heap of values cards. So it's literally just little cards. Each one has a value, freedom, family, safety, wealth, all that sort of thing. And you sort of go through these cards, each one individually, and say, yep, this is important to me, this isn't important to me. And you sort of nut it down to your top 5 of what's really important to you in your life, and then sort of figure out from there if you're actually, living those. If one of your top ones is freedom, and you're feeling absolutely trapped by your job or your partner, or where you're living, then maybe you need to look at that one and start sort of make a plan to have more freedom in your life.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's everything. You didn't want to add on anything else, did you?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll put Steph's social links in the description of the video and podcast. But thank you for listening, everyone, and stay tuned for next week.
Thanks, Cassie. Bye.